has a GPU in it. Who likes this feature? Nice. Okay. Show you another good one here. If I zoom in, check this out. We get right in here, and as we zoom in and get the detail happening, I have a way to actually zoom out and look at another part of the image. If I hold down the H key and click on my mouse, I get this. I get a real-time bird's eye view. Now see the little square around my hand, right? That's my zoom level I'm at in this huge file. If I want to see what's going on any other part of the image, all I need to do is let go of my keyboard, let's say on the highway here, I want to see what's going on the highway, release it, and it zooms right in. Same thing. Click. Let's see what's going on in the Adobe offices here. Zoom in, not much. Click. Let's see what's going on. Yeah, I know this is a Fairmont Hotel in downtown San Jose. Now it's the daytime, so we won't see anything nasty. So I feel comfortable zooming in here. But look at the detail I'm getting from that 442 megapixel file. And no delay at all. If I come over here, these are parts of the file that I have not gone to yet. So it's not storing it in memory. It's doing it in real time, rendering on screen. Let's see what's going on over here. Let's read some license plates. Who's pulling up into the Adobe office? See who's late, who's on time. Let's see which construction workers are really working really hard. Oh, he's not working too hard. How about right over here? Oh, nothing going on there. Oh, right over here. Nothing. Oh, there we go. So you can see this, how great it is working inside Photoshop CS4 with support for a GPU card. Now you're probably wondering, do I have a GPU card? Do I have one of these cards? Most likely you do. This has a 512 megabyte dedicated NVIDIA card in a laptop. If you're working with a tower, a professional-based system, you're probably going to have a GPU card. If you have one of those iMacs that have an integrated video card, then you probably won't have a dedicated GPU card. So when you go out and purchase computers, make sure they have a dedicated GPU card, and Photoshop will take advantage of it. Okay, let's rotate this 1.18 gigabyte image. Remember the rotate feature? Look at that. No problem. Rotate canvas feature. So right away, Photoshop CS4 is doing something it's never done before, taking advantage of your hardware you have in your computer to make it run faster. Cool. Let's move on to some newer stuff. We know that in Photoshop, there are things that get in the way of getting work done. I'll give you an example. If I wanted to make this image lighter or darker, everyone has their own way of adjusting images. And if you are what I call a classic Photoshop user, you probably would want to go for image adjustment curves, right? And the thing is about this feature here is that it gets in the way of my work. Look how big that dialog box is. Okay, it's really powerful, it's great, but it kind of gets in the way. Now, if you have a huge 30-inch monitor, not a big deal. I know you guys all have 30-inch monitors, so it might not be a big deal. If you don't, and you're dealing with a laptop, it's a big deal. That's one way of working. Now, everything I do here is a destructive edit. It will alter the pixels permanently. I can't go back and revert it. If I have lots of undo, I can, but if I save the file and move on to something else, come a week later, it's a destructive edit. So in Photoshop, we added these things called adjustment layers. And we did a really horrible job of showing you where they are. All we did was make this little tiny icon right here to tell you that's an adjustment layer. So unless you went and took some training on Photoshop, you would never really know that adjusting an image could be done with non-destructive adjustment layers. But we know that. Right here. Curves. Now instead of having that big dialog box show up, this is what we've done. We've made two panels. One called the adjustment panel. All those adjustments are now located in a little panel off to the side away from the image. If I want to use these adjustments, I can choose which one I want to apply to my image. Even better, I can choose an actual preset. So let's say someone else has worked on a curve already and stored it, and I'm using it. I simply turn down curves and say, oh, here's one called lighter. And when I click on it, it applies that curve to the image. And it shows me down here in my layers palette that I have a non-destructive adjustment layer, which is the way you should be adjusting every photograph in Photoshop. The only reason it's still here is because if we took it out, someone would complain. You shouldn't be using this. You should be doing a non-destructive adjustment layer. Why? Because you can turn it off. You can always go back and edit this after the fact. So if I use my adjustment navigator right here, I can go back to the main panel and add another adjustment layer. So no matter which ones I add to my image, it's going to show up in a non-destructive way. And if I click on this layer, see how my panel changes? I click on that one, it changes here. This is a brand new one called Vibrant, part of our camera raw support. If I wanted to make this image color pop, I would normally use saturation. Saturation is a linear adjustment. It adjusts all levels of RGB up, and it makes the model look like he's been in the tanning salon a little too long. So we have a new one here called Vibrance, which recognizes that there's flesh tones in this image, and it will make the colors purer, but it will leave the flesh tones alone. Right? So this is an adjustment layer done through the adjustment panel inside Photoshop CS4. Cool. So we know that that's going to save you time in using Photoshop. Not completely new features, but taking what we already have and making it easier to use, faster to use, and not get in the way of your work. We also took our masking workflow and altered it. For example, to work with masks inside Photoshop, it's not the easiest thing. It could be a lot easier. We're making it better. But one area that is not that easy to use is making vector masks. Now, I haven't really been a huge fan of vector masks because vectors are very, the edges are not fuzzy. They don't show all the little detail in there. We know them as clipping paths. I'm not a big fan of clipping paths because you don't have to use them anymore inside InDesign because it supports transparency. So if I wanted to make a vector mask on this, I can click on the brand new vector mask tool, and it does that. It gives me a vector mask. Now I can go out and grab any shape and mask out any region that I have here. What's new is, over here, I have a density slider to control my density of that mask. And I have a feather slider. I can actually now feather a vector mask inside Photoshop. And if I go and grab my direct selection tool and start to manipulate this path, you can see how dynamic it is and how cool it is. If I change my mind and I don't want this vector mask to be feathered anymore, right, because you cannot feather a vector, I simply turn it down and turn off the feather. So we have a new masking panel, but also a new non-destructive control for feathering and density when you do that. And it's really, really nice to work with this way. Okay. Let's move on to some other stuff. See if I can fix my redraw problem I'm having here. Fix that. Having it out and go to this feature right here. You're all going to like this feature. I promise you. It's awesome. I call it the star of Photoshop CS4, and it rocks. A lot of times you are dealt with stuff that you just have to fix. This is more than normal than not normal. Make this picture fit this postcard and give me 5,000 copies. And, in Photoshop, you can go and grab the transform tool and transform it, but the client's not going to be too happy, right? The boat's distorted, the people are distorted, it just doesn't look right. But you have to make it fit, so what do? Well, you start grabbing your clone tool. You clone more sky, more ocean. You copy this and you paste that, and you spend like 4 hours making it fit. And your client's really happy. You charge them for all that work, right? Don't forget to charge them. So instead of doing all that, in Creative Suite 4, we added this new technology that was available from this person, a scientist, really bright person, that invented it. It's called scene carving. And it's really cool stuff. What it does is it analyzes the picture, and it will allow you to add information and remove information based on what's in the picture, automatically. Okay? So I want to transform this image. I want to change its proportions. And I want to make it fit that postcard. And scene carving will allow me to do this. So we found this person on the internet who's